The American people should hear this. $300 million a day for 2 decades. You take the number of 1 trillion, as many say, that's still $150 million a day for 2 decades. What have we lost as a consequence in terms of opportunities? I refuse to continue a war that was no longer in the service of the vital national interest of our people.
Well, so you can expect to hear a lot about that point, that debate. Expect we'll hear more about the money. Here to talk about that, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, also the author of the upcoming book, Beyond Biden. How you doing, sir? And good morning. Good morning to you. We were talking to Mike Gallagher a moment, the Republican from Wisconsin. He served overseas. He had a lot of good points that he really wants to draw out of this administration. Not sure if he's going to succeed or not. But just on that point right there, I mean, does this all die in the abyss of Washington, D.C.?
Well, I doubt it, just because, you know, Afghanistan's going to go on. The Taliban's going to go on. We're going to find out if the president was right and yesterday, and 10% of the Americans are still in Afghanistan. That's potentially a hostage crisis on a giant scale. Now, we don't know what the Taliban's going to do. They could say, any American who wants to can leave, you know, come to the airport, there'll be planes coming in, et cetera. But there's also a possibility that at least one part of the Taliban is in a very aggressive attitude. They've been out killing people. We've seen this. They have begun to hunt down people who helped the Americans. They've shot at least 2 police chiefs for having helped the Americans. And so if they decide to go in a retribution cycle, you're going to see a lot of people die in the next 3 to 6 months. So we just don't know how they're going to govern at this stage. They spent 20 years in war. They didn't spend 20 years preparing to take over the country and govern it. Their goal was just desperation, survive long enough for the Americans to get tired and go home.
In the soundbite that we started with, the president talked about how much money will be saved that is not being spent in Afghanistan that we could spend here at home. Here's, you know, they want to spend $3.5 trillion in this human infrastructure bill. They're going to start debating now. And the combined spending plans, if you look at this, call for two folks, is $1.7 trillion for the American Jobs Plan, $1.8 trillion for the American Families Plan, and $1.9 trillion for the American Rescue Plan. So in a way, sir, I do think that that might be persuasive for some people to hear that. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it might be. I think there are 2 challenges. One is we did a survey, and by something like 59 to 16, people preferred free market capitalism to big government socialism. So I'm not sure a Bernie Sanders $3.5 trillion big government socialist bill is going to be very popular once people actually look at it. Second, this is going to cause this collapse in Afghanistan, the way that Biden presided over a total disaster. This is going to cause us to have to think about funding against China, funding against North Korea, funding against Iran, funding against Russia. I'm not sure we're going to save any money by having proven that we're weak and afraid to stay and that we're willing to cut and run. I think, if anything, the world's going to turn out to be more dangerous, and we may actually be forced into, just as Jimmy Carter was, spending more money on defense because of the nature of our enemies.
I don't know what you thought of the president's tone yesterday. It's getting a lot of attention. A lot of people writing it off. But Dana pointed out there was a reporter at the briefing. Jen Psaki briefed after the president came out. I think Fox, we took most of it. The others took a little bit of it, I think. Dana, what was the question the reporter said?
It was Ed O'Keefe of CBS. He said that a lot of people in the room had noticed that President Biden seemed very angry. And the question was, who are you mad at?
Yeah. So just think about that now as you look at these poll numbers from ABC. They found that 84% of all Americans want to stay there until all Americans are out, 71% until all allied Afghans are evacuated. So think about the polling numbers. Think about what they're looking at from a strategy aspect internally in the White House. Why do you come out with such a forceful defense as he did yesterday?
Look, I think he is, I'm guessing, but my guess is that he is extremely angry. He saw himself as a heroic figure getting us out of a 20-year war, and then it all went to pieces. I mean, the imagery of him at Dover receiving the fallen bodies while looking at his watch, was as devastating as anything I've seen. And to have the Gold Star families, the parents and the relatives of the dead, to have them erupt against the president in that kind of a setting is literally unprecedented. I don't care which prior president was involved. And he must right now feel like he's almost trapped, because every time he turns around, there's somebody telling him how stupid this is, or how bad it is, or how destructive it is. And I think he's decided he's just going to go straight forward. He's going to force his way through and hope that we'll go to a new topic and we'll get beyond this. And I think he's in for a rude shock. There are certain events, 9/11 was one of them, which are historic. They don't disappear, they don't go away. I think the way he left, not that he left, the way he left Afghanistan was so humiliating. And the notion that we would, by his own words, that we would leave 10% of our people behind, that is so un-American and such a violation of our traditions that I think he's going to find that this is just not going to stop. And I think Milley and Austin are going to find that the demands for their resignation are just going to keep growing, because there are no defenses for how badly they did this. I mean, this is the sort of project you could have given to a half dozen lieutenants and captains, and they would not have done any worse than the chairman of the Joint Chief and the Secretary of Defense.
Sir, thank you for your time. Appreciate seeing you again. Newt Gingrich.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.